PGA Nation, we are back, and it has been a long time. I've missed you. I've missed you all, and I can't wait to get back on the golf grind. Right before we came on, we were just kind of getting ready for Sanderson Farms. We were chatting, and we were saying it's like the first tournament back after a while, in some aspects, can be the most challenging one. But then, because we have a JV tournament and it's not necessarily a full field, there's different ways to find an edge. So we're gonna have some fun tonight drafting. Spence, how you doing tonight?
I'm doing well. We were trying to figure out the order before we came on, and as I told you guys, I am claiming victory from last week. So congratulations to me from winning last week's contest.
You know, in fairness, I'm going to give it to you because you said it, and that's just your move, and that's a good move. I guess technically, though, David really won last week because think about it against the European sides. I guess David should have gotten the W. David, how you doing today?
I know, robbed once again, and the show hasn't even started. We did have a very, very good week at the BMW PGA Championship, which is the last show we ran. But man, what a thrilling Ryder Cup! I mean, if you're following us over at Win Daily Sports, we tipped Europe at $3.10 at the beginning of July. They actually opened as favourites at $1.90, and after the first session, they come into $1.25. So you're getting plus 210 a couple of months ago with us on Europe, and it was pretty much done and dusted by the Friday morning, and that was ended up being the difference after the foursomes round. But I really enjoyed it. I thought it was an awesome tournament. I think at the end of the day, Justin Thomas actually kind of justified his place. He got hamstrung by Jordan Spieth, who was just like absolutely dreadful. Xander Schauffele was really disappointing as well, and the top guys in Europe really stepped up. It was an awesome tournament. Really enjoyed it.
It was. I think. I don't think. Obviously, Justin Thomas didn't deserve to be there, and I don't think it's right that there's just like this boys club of like, hey, if you're in the group, then like you're a part of it, and because Justin Thomas been good and he's in the in group, he gets to go. And you know what? I wouldn't have brought Spieth either. Neither one of them should have been there. There was guys who were playing better golf, and the best players should be invited. And that's something that's an easy fix. That a real leader for the U.S. should step up and say, hey, it's not about being in the boys club. It's about just whoever's playing the best golf right now should be coming with us. So I hope we get it right for next year. But you're right. It was a fun week. It was fun to watch. Always an exciting Ryder Cup. But moving on to Sanderson Farms, right? Let's get back onto our grind. We're going. Listen, it's a different location, right? I mean, we're Jackson, Mississippi. Not a lot of tournaments out there, but we got one here. Definitely a JV field for our purposes. Spence, you got your work cut out for us today. What are you looking for in the course breakdown?
I think this is a really unique venue to try and handicap from a DFS perspective, and I'll get into why that reason is in a second. But we see players hit the fairway here only 53% of the times. That kind of means to me a bomb and gouge mentality might be the way to go if you can position your first shot on the correct side of the land. I would lean towards that when building a model, but beyond anything else that's going to be said, the peculiar nature of the layout comes down to this being a venue that highlights really a 5-hole stretch and diminishes most of the upside elsewhere. So the 4 par 5s and the par 4 15th. We look at the 4 par 5s, a staggering 47.5% of the winning score output has been created on those 4 holes alone. Then we get an additional 11.5% on that aforementioned par 4 15th. That measures only 330 yards. That's a total of 59% of the projected allotment of the production. It's really notable since that means that 27% of the holes are going to account for nearly 60% of the winning score. I don't think that suggests that other ranges won't still play as important. You have 5 holes that have a 20% bogey or worse rate. I don't mind taking a deeper dive in the par 4 scoring from 450 plus yards to account for that. We do get a little bit of a boost here from 0 to 150 yards in proximity if you want to look at a condensed proximity range. But essentially for me, it's just, find the par 3s, the lengthier par 4s, try to avoid your mistakes there, and then attack the more gettable locations.
There you have it. Simplified to an extent, but definitely something you want to use when breaking down who you want to play this week and building out your player pool. Because of the nature of the player pool and it being a JV field, I do find it relatively easier than most weeks to kind of narrow down my core of who I want to play, the guys I want to rotate into the mix. So we'll get into it with the draft now. Spencer, I'm going to pull up the draft board. We made the order for tonight. Spencer, me, David, Audience will be going last. So as a quick refresher, if you're new to the Draftcast, this works like your typical fantasy football snake draft. It goes 1 through 4. Audience, you'll go 2 in a row, and then we'll go backward. You do need to stay within a DraftKings salary. So what that means is you can't just go out there and pick all the best players at the highest price. You need to draft a team accordingly to make sure you can actually afford your roster. Without further ado, Spence, who are on the clock?
Well, I was obviously going to take Webb until he pulled out of the tournament, so this forced my hand to go in a different direction here. I noticed something with one player, and I'll dive into it a little bit more of why I'm so strong with this answer, but there were some similar outlooks that kind of resembled what I saw from Sahith Theegala at the Fortinet when I backed him. The portions of the game that are going to need help are obviously going to be different, but I really like Steven Jaeger this week. I think this comes down to what does his putter do, and we have seen these random outbursts of life from him recently with that fashion of his game. Obviously, Theegala's difference was going to be the weighted proximity that came into play. We had seen that surge from him recently with the results, but also with the iron play leading into that victory. Jaeger's not going to have that problem. He's gained off the tee in 10 of his past 12 with the irons in 7 of 8. I just think the fact that he's earned strokes in 6 of his last 9 tournaments is such a stark contrast with the putter from what we got from him during that 10 straight event stretch from the beginning to middle of 2023 when he lost strokes. You add that to the mix here to where there is a 25 spot improvement on my model on this specific fast Bermuda surface with the putter. I think this is a really nice spot for him. Like maybe there's been that lack of upside and the lack of win equity since none of those results other than one of this 14 consecutive made cut streak that he has landed inside the top 10. But I think this is a nice course fit for him. The ball striking's there and the putter has enough upside for me inside my model that I would not be shocked if this is where he finally gets himself into the winner's circle.
I like it. I totally get your point where it's it feels like this is the type of tournament he would break through at where, he's not going up against your Rahms and Rorys and, it's a spot for him to really show up when he has one of those weeks where, like you said, that putter goes nuclear. That would certainly make sense. How about you, David? Are you on Jaeger at all this week?
Yeah, like Jaeger a lot. I think he justifies that first spot, especially considering we've got a lot of question marks with Ludwig Aberg, right? Like he's just traveled across from Rome. They've obviously had a pretty famous victory over in Europe. They would have celebrated it pretty hard. There's lots of footage of them up to all sorts of antics over the 24 to 48 hours following the Ryder Cup. And so that immediately raises question marks of what sort of state is he in? Is he going to be jet lagged that first round or is he going to be ready to go? It's really difficult to tell. And so I think from a safety standpoint, if you're spending up at that top end of the salary, I think Jaeger is the way that I would go as well.
There you have it. So I'm up here, and from a strategic standpoint, one of the things I was thinking, listen, in terms of talent, like Aberg makes a ton of sense. Someone I'm considering I want to play. But just thinking through this field, and to the points like David made, the guys in the 9K, 8K range are closer to Aberg than the normal week where you get a Rahm or Rory up there and the guys in the 8, 9K range. So I think balance makes sense just for the reason that I'd rather just get a full team of guys in that 7 to 9K range that I can build that will probably be closer to the top than they would be in a normal week. So that's how I'm thinking about it. And with my first pick, I'm going to take a guy who you've heard me mention as a first-round leader probably almost every week. I love him as a lower salaried guy. I think this is a week where he's playing well recently, and he could step up and have a big week, and that's Callum Tarrant. I think as a course fit, he hits it far. The big question mark, similarly to Jaeger, is can he find a hot putter? I think if he does this week, he's got the ball striking and everything else to really compete. So at 7,500, I think there's plenty of value on him here this week. How about you, Spencer? You want Callum at all?
I don't know if I'm going to get there. There were some concerns I had with the upside metrics there. I mean, obviously, when we're down into the $7,000 range, and I think with all those players, and it's kind of to your point, Joel, that you're bringing up, there's a lot of those guys that there's really not that big of a difference between them and some of these names that do get up into the $9,000 range. I don't think personally he's the one that I'm going to play from that mix, but there are a handful of players there that I could make that same argument about, whether you, Joel, or anybody else is on it. I think that's a really intriguing range to try to find value from this week.
There you have it. David, you're up. But Les, are you looking at Taron all this week, and who are you going with?
Yeah, I mean, Taron makes a lot of sense, right? He played really well at the Fortinet. Just, I guess, bear in mind with that was putting on Poa, and we're back to Bermuda grass here as well. So just whether we can adapt to the new putting surface would be the question. But, I mean, last time out here, he was 13th in gain putting, and what was promising from that was a lot of the approach play was very good from him last time he was here. I think it was in probably slightly better form, coming off a better season last season. But, yeah, I think there's upside there, and I don't mind him in 7K. But you guys have let slip to me my favorite value on the board in Beau Hossler, who I think is in excellent form. He had one chonky week at the Wyndham Championship, but other than that, he's been consistently finishing in the top 30 or better, multiple top 20s recently. And in terms of the recipe for success here, for me, it's driving distance plays a really key part, and then putting as well. And Beau Hossler ticks both of those boxes. I would have loved if, like, say, a Joseph Bramlett or Patrick Rogers was in that field. Unfortunately, for some reason, they've decided not to play. But Beau Hossler, for me, ticks a lot of those boxes and some similar kind of metrics.
Beau Hossler, certainly seen him pop a few times in the 2022-2023 season. Certainly seems like a good field for him. What say you, Spence? Are you on Hossler at all?
I mean, this would kind of back David's point here. He has been one of the most steamed golfers I've seen in the market. Massive favorite in pretty much any of the matchups that he's in. That outright number steadily has come down. There's movement in the correct way there. So I definitely understand that. He's good on easy courses. He has a nice safety rating in my model. I don't have a problem with anybody who wants to get there. I don't know if I'm personally going to myself, but there's a lot of reasons for why David stated and what the market is doing around him. That's very intriguing.
Well, there you have it. Audience, you are on the clock. As you know, it takes 2 nominations to get your pick in. You have a few nominations out there. None have been doubled yet. So we're looking at you, Zach, Ed, Ivan. You need one more to be doubled for your pick to go in. And then, well, technically you need 2 because you got 2 back-to-back picks here. So with your first pick, it's a big pick. And it looks like the first one is in Grillo, which I like a lot. I like the Grillo pick from the standpoint of, in terms of a golfer profile, argument can be made he's the best golfer in this field, especially the way he's played in the last season. Whether he's a course fit, maybe neutral for me. I don't think it's like the perfect course for him, but I don't think it's necessarily against him. What say you, Spence?
Yeah, I think you kind of said it best, Joel. I think when I look at it from a safety rating, and this would be not necessarily looking, and he, by the way, I mean, he has 4 top 40 finishes at this venue. So obviously he's done something right at this course, but the safety rating of that shows well. I think the upside number is a little bit lower, but any of those guys kind of in that $10,000 plus range, you're kind of splitting hairs to me between them. So, I mean, obviously I went with Jaeger as my choice, but you are going to get ownership discount on Grillo, and you're going to get, at least in my model, a top 5 play there.
I love it. I love it. And the second pick is also in, and it's going to be Sam Stevens. I'll let you take this one, David. What are your thoughts on Stevens for this week?
Yeah, I really like Stevens this week. I think he's got the upside. Driving distance, obviously big tick. We know he can get really hot with the putter as well. He was very, very close to making my card this week, so I definitely like that play.
Boom. Good pick. Audience, off to a strong start. Is the audience going to come out hot this year and come out with the win on the first draft class? To be determined. But, David, you're up next with your second pick. Who are you looking at here?
Yes, I'm gonna stick around that 9K range. I think, as you said correctly, Joel, there's not that much of a gap between like the 10K, 9K golfers this week. And for me, it gets really difficult, right, when you're in these first tournaments back and you've got kind of this 3-week period. And I just like to go back to like, what's that player's base level talent? And for me, Lucas Herbert has really got the ability to come out and win some more PGA Tour events. He ticks that box, long driving distance, a really excellent putter. That's going to be very key to his success. And he's found success at this course before. I think that he's a player who's got a lot of upside. So really like his chances this week.
There you have it. Lucas Herbert. I feel like you love Lucas Herbert. You play him This is definitely not the first time you've drafted him. You've been on him a few times, and I think you get him right usually. You usually hit him on the weeks that he does well. So you seem to be the Lucas Herbert whisperer. Spencer, are you playing Herbert at all this week?
Probably not, but I will say the Hostler-Herbert duo there are very similar commodities of that distance putting acumen that you're looking for. So if you like one and you want to play one, you probably should play the other. So it definitely makes sense with the build that David has going on right now.
Boom. There you have it. I will say, I'm just going to put this out there in the Draftcast universe. Leading the show right now with Sia gone and trying to draft my own team is incredibly challenging because I'm usually picking my picks while Sia's running the show, and right now I'm trying to do both, and I'm falling behind on my picks. So
have you noticed, Joel? Nobody's chiming in between David and I to help lead this show. We're just gonna let you try to drown on it, and I agree, it's very difficult trying to multitask when you're running a show, and it's not just basically ask a question and then try to find your team as Sia's being able to filibuster in there and move us across with it. But yeah, I mean, I'm trying to take any advantage I can right now.
That's fair. That's fair. I would do the same, in fairness. So I'll be honest with you. I would absolutely take advantage of that situation. But I landed on my pick for right now, and I'm pretty pleased with it. I'm happy with where I'm going. I'm going to take Sam Ryder. Here's another guy that in this field, I think he's getting a little bit overlooked from a talent perspective. I think Sam Ryder, compared to these other guys, could have been priced in the 9.5 range, and no one would have batted an eye. He's playing well. We know he can find a hot putter. The ball striking's been good. He's even been pretty good off the tee. If he can continue some of that form and success here, I think he can go as far as winning this tournament. So Sam Ryder, 8,500, I think is a really good value. I'm going to stick with him here. How about you, David? Are you playing Ryder at all this week?
My concern with Ryder would be down to the fact he hasn't really got the driving distance. Most of that off the tee game comes from his driving accuracy. In saying that, it's not the be all and end all of this course, right? Like we've seen Ryan Armour, for example, win here, and Nick Taylor win here, who are not the longest drivers, and in fact they play more of that driving accuracy game. So in terms of the way that I'm building this week, if I'm kind of telling that narrative of I'm wanting driving distance and putting, I'm not sure that he would really make my cash game squad, but I think certainly in the wider GPP that he has got the upside if he can find the week. It's just his path to victory is literally more narrow because he is going to have to find all those fairways in order to find success this week.
Makes sense. Totally makes sense. All right, Spence, you got two here on the wheel. Who are you looking at?
I wasn't necessarily planning to go this route, and this is I don't have ownership right now that I trust. There's a couple sites that I normally pull from that have been slow to enter the market. So I'm essentially pulling from two, running an aggregated total from that. I'll add the other three that are actually the ones I trust a little bit more. I might have the most popular build in the history of the show right now with these next two picks I'm going to make, or at least the most popular build that I've ever put together from the numbers I'm seeing. I am going to take Dylan Wu. Thought it was a very interesting profile for him. There was a lot of resemblances to that Thagala where the recent history looks good. What he has done in multiple facets of his game, but number one putter over the last 24 rounds, second in my model in expected weighted scoring, the two top 14 finishes that I was talking about that kind of sort of resemble what we saw with the Gala entering the mix here. I know the course history isn't necessarily what you would want for a golfer that does have a lot of ownership around him, but 12 consecutive rounds of shooting par or better. That's one of the best marks in the tournament right now. So I'm going to take Dylan Wu with the first pick. And then I am going to jump back up to the top again and maybe take what looks to be, at least for me right now, the most popular player on the board, and that's Eric Cole at 10,300. Maybe Ludwig is the spot to try to get unique and different. I consider doing that. I worry a little bit about this spot for him coming over from Europe. So I'll go with Eric Cole. Not really worried about the missed cut that he presented here last season. Steady golfer, plays almost every single week. Short game's immaculate. The approach play looks good. I know that the off the tee stuff is always the question mark with him, but anytime you look at the weighted scoring with him, whether it be, sixth in all the par fours that I'm looking at, he's inside the top 25 for pretty much every single iteration of the par 3, 4, and 5 holes that I'm running. So I'll take Eric Cole here.
I mean, I really like the Cole pick. We saw Cole really come into a great season. I think he has a ton of upside. I mean, he competed in some of those full fields this year. I think he certainly deserves to be that price and one of the highest priced guys in this field. And if you're playing, a build like Spencer is, where it's more a starbs and scrubs type of approach and being different, that's certainly one of the ways I would go. What say you, David? Are you on Cole or Wu?
I mean, of those two, I probably prefer Dylan Wu as the pick. I think Eric Cole undoubtedly has tons of ability. Like I totally rate the player, but off the tee is the worry for me, as Spencer kind of alluded to. And I think if I'm playing up 10,300, I mean, Spencer drafted Steven Jager anyway, but I'd rather spend the extra $100 and get Jager over Cole anyway.
Makes sense. Makes sense. All right. Moving on, I am up here. I am scrambling. I'm down between two guys, and I'm going to go ahead and commit here to Adam Svensson. In a perfect world for me, there's this like sweet spot, like I said before, of these like high 7, 8K range. Svensson's at the 9 flat. The way he's been playing, I like Svensson pretty much as much as anyone in this field. I think you could have put him at 10 flat, and I wouldn't have batted an eye. So I think you're getting a good value here. And Svensson's the guy that's really doing everything pretty well right now. So you're going to get the ball striking. His recent results, I mean, I know they're not as recent, but still, I mean, it's all top 40s in his last 5 outings within the top 40. He's got a top 10 at the Wyndham, which was just in August. He's got 15th at the BMW. The putter has been there. The ball striking has been consistent. It's just a lot to like about his game. So I think he's in a really solid spot here for this week. How about you, Spence? Are you on Svensson?
My model really liked him, and it kind of goes to the point, I guess, that you were talking about. Inside the top 8 for me, pretty much any way that I ran it. Technically he's the 10th price player right now, but some of the upside totals for him were intriguing once I got past the course fit here. And I don't think that this is necessary, or the course history, I should say, maybe not the course fit, but I don't think this is necessarily the most indicative course with rollover predictability. If you look at it over at Data Golf, it's near the bottom of all venues on tour. So I don't overly worry about the 54th miscut, 39th in the last 4 tries that he's put together. Ownership is something to keep in mind here, but we saw him, and maybe this isn't as noteworthy now that there's been multiple weeks taken off, but we saw him close the year strong at the BMW and the Wyndham with back to 2 out of 3 inside the top 15 there. So I definitely think he's somebody to consider.
There you have it. I love it. All right, David, you are back on the clock with your 3rd pick here. Good start so far. Who are you looking at?
Yeah, so again, just for me, going back to some of the baseline talent of these golfers and where I sort of expect them to be coming into the next season, I think Alex Noren's really underpriced this week, 7,800. I mean, Data Golf at the moment rank him 66 in the world, which is actually one of the highest rankings in this field. And I know Spencer's going to be really disappointed about this pick, but for me, this is a really talented golfer with an excellent short game. He drives it long enough. He can dial back in terms of the accuracy as well. And last time out, we saw him at the Fortinet. He lost a ton of strokes putting, but bear in mind that's POA, and we're coming back to into a Bermuda surface here where he's putted a lot more successfully. I also like he's got a 3rd and a 5th at the Honda Classic, and I think that's a pretty good comp course if you're looking at PGA National, translating to some form here. So for me, he's a really obvious value at 7,800.
Yeah, I like that pick. It does feel like this is the type of tournament where like Noren kind of rises up and has one of those showings, those typical Aaron. Because every year Alex Noren's going to have like those 4 top 10 somewhere sprinkled out throughout the season, and this feels like this is a spot where he shows up. So I can definitely get behind that. Audience, you are on the clock. So while we're still talking about this pick, be sure to get your nominations in. You have 2 picks, so we're going to be nominations and we're going to be doubles. Make sure, obviously, to stay within salary of an 8K average left. Get that going. While you guys get your picks in, we'll go to Spence. Spence, are you playing Noren at all this week?
I think I'm always playing Noren. I felt some relief that David did it because, like, all jokes aside in the chat, I was obviously going to take Alex Noren at some point. That would have probably been one of my next 2 picks. The recent form has been so shaky with him that nobody wants to go back down that well. But anytime you give him one of these fast Bermuda surfaces and even I talked about this funny enough with David when we hung together at the Shriners a year ago. From a modeling perspective, Noren actually grades really well on these easier scoring courses. I know that's against the grain of what everybody thinks of these grinded out affairs, but like he's inside the top 10 of my model almost any single time you throw him on Fast Bermuda. I just think he's too cheap at 7,800 because of some of those results.
That makes sense, and I agree. I think stature, status play, Noren is definitely the guy. Looks like the first pick is definitely in for the audience in EVR. Surprise for me. How about you, David? Did you see EVR going here?
No surprise for me. I was tossing up between Noren and EVR for my pick and trying to predict who the audience might go with. And looking at what average salary they had remaining, I thought that it might have been Noren over EVR, but he was going to be my next pick. So, yeah, congrats, audience. You've ruined my team for the rest of this draft.
There you have it. I love it. Zach with another nomination in there, one that was on my radar. So I like that pick, and that has been doubled. So I probably should have kept my mouth shut. But the second pick is in Peter Quest, who, listen, he doesn't have the longest track record necessarily, but we've seen him play well. And I think he's a sneaky play. Spence, are you on Quest at all?
I am. So once Noren was gone, Quest was the next route I was going to go. So yeah, I like the pick.
There you have it. So I find it interesting. I think all of us were kind of eyeing a similar range, similar guys, which, to your point earlier, Spence, I don't think there's great ownership information out there right now. So stay tuned. Get into Win Daily this week. Look at Steven's article. It comes out Wednesday night. That is typically the most accurate ownership I've seen. That will definitely help. But not knowing, I think us being circling the same range of guys is telling of who people will generally like at a high level. But that's a pick that I like. I like the way the audience's team is coming together thus far. David, with your fourth pick, you're back on the clock.
Yeah, and I mean, the audience, as I said, has stolen EVR from me. So what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to go down the board, grab some of the value, and then I can have a bit of a think about where I want to take this lineup from here. So I'll take Zhesheng Dao at lowly 6,900. For me, he possesses a ton of upside, still really young, 26 years old. Hasn't been in the best of form, but that's mainly come with the putter, and I think that he benefits from a return to a Bermuda surface here. The approach play has come around a lot, though, over the last 3 months, and I think that's really notable for me. Possesses tons of driving distance, and obviously he's only played here once. He made the cut back in 2023, so for a rookie season, that was fine for me, and I think he's decent value at 6,900 to at least get a cut made and has some upside too.
Oh, I love it. Spence, is Dow in your player pool this week?
Yeah, I think he's a savvy pick. Obviously, I mean, he's going to have to make some putts, but if that's his one real weakness that I'm looking here, I see an increase in my model and weighted proximity over some of the baseline numbers that I was anticipating. So, I mean, at least if you threw him on a generic course. So I think this is a nice course setup for him. Game looks like he's better than a $6,900 golfer in a lot of ways when you take into account that upside. So I have no problems with him.
There you have it. All right, here. I am going to move in, and I'm going to take an upside pick. I think this is a guy that can go out and win the tournament this week. We've seen the ball striking be there. I'm hoping that because his last showing wasn't great, people are off of him. And that's Alex Smalley. I mean, we saw Smalley go on a run of ball striking that was very elite. I think he can find that again this week in this field, make some putts and really compete. I mean, he kind of, for lack of a better way of saying it, shit the bed at the FedEx St. Jude. But before that, he was on you could say, he had 2 missed cuts before that, but the ball striking was still very good at the Wyndham. He had been making some putts before that. I think the time off, find that putter, come back and strike it well, could be a good recipe for him this week. What say you, Spencer? Are you on Smalley at all?
I think that all the points that you made are very reasonable. They're inside the top 10 of my model when I shot this for upside. Only small concern I had, and it's the one thing that I always go to, and maybe it's not as much of a concern now because he has shown a difference from it recently, would have been the upside the lack of upside that he possesses on the par 5 scoring. But think you can give that answer about a lot of guys into that, below $9,000 range. So I think Smalley is perfectly fine at 8,900.
Boom. There you have it, Spence. You got two here. You're back to back. You got 7,200 average left. Who are you looking at?
I'll keep this simple. I'll just go with the teammates that won a tournament here a little bit ago. I'll say Davis Ryan, Nick Hardy at 7,400. I think it's a nice course fit for both of them.
There you have it. I think those are agreed. And I think those are two really good value calls there. Guys who certainly have upside to compete in a tournament like this, getting them under 8K. I like the price. I like both picks there. David, what say you? Are you playing Riley or Hardy this week?
Yeah, it's interesting to note that Davis Riley has called this his fifth major. It's basically a home game for him. Went to school just up the road, and so it means a lot, right? So I'm not too perturbed about the fact he gave the 4-net a miss. I think that if he had wanted to play that, he would have. And it's also interesting, right? Like he's secured his status with the victory at the Zurich Classic. So it's interesting now with this new layout of the FedEx Cup and the structure that the PGA Tour is kind of moving with, where if you're in the top 50, you can't improve your ranking until January, right? So these guys have a lot less pressure on them than some of those guys who are trying to save their PGA Tour card, or, when it comes down to like, are they going to make the cut or not? They might play a bit conservative just to make sure that they're there for the weekend and then try and push forward. Whereas Riley's like here to win, and that's kind of it. He's been a first round leader here as well. So I had that.
Yep, there you have it. All right, I'm back on the clock here, and I am stalling as I make this last decision, and I've come to it. And I'm going to take Garrett Higgo. This is a guy, I think he has plenty of upside. If you are someone targeting guys who have that power off the tee, he will check that box. The other thing that intrigues me most about Higgo is that he seems to have recently found a very strong putter. And if he's going to putt well, I think it's a mixed bag with him in terms of ball striking. We've seen him have good ball striking weeks. We've seen him be terrible. I think if he finds a week where he's, hits it really well, gets one of those hot days, and that putter continues to roll, he does have the upside to go ahead and win the tournament. So I like Higgo this week. He's probably someone I would save more for GPPs than cash, but I do think for a GPP tournament play, he has upside. What about you, David? Are you playing Higgo at all this week?
Yeah, I really like Higgo this week. He burst on the scene, right, with those initial wins when it just seemed like he was winning. Well, he was winning every single week, and he kind of went off the boil a little bit since, but he's still really young. He's like 24 years old. So the guy's obviously shown an ability that when he gets really hot, he can go out and actually get across the line and get a victory for you. So I really like the upside that comes there, and I think that he's a really talented golfer who has a lot of potential there.
There you have it. I love it. All right, David, with your fifth pick, 8,200 average salary remaining. Who are you looking at here?
Yeah, so I'm going to go ahead. I'll take SH Kim at 9,400. For me, he's an uber talented golfer, plenty of distance. We've just seen what he done at the Fortinet, and really pushing Tagala right there at the end when he came in second. And he's got a good record here as well. He was 13th last year, I believe. So obviously displayed a bit of upside last time out, but ticks that recipe for me of really strong putting, good around the green, and plenty of driving distance. And that's a pretty good recipe for success. I do think he attracts a lot of ownership, would be my concern, but just in the spot where I'm in, where EVR's been taken off the board, kind of have to go a different route here, and I'll take SH Kim for that.
All right. I want to grab Spencer's opinion on SH Kim. Before I pass to Spencer, I want to remind the audience that you are on the clock. Your final two picks. Get your nominations in to round out your squad. You have 8,700 average salary left, so you have some money to spend. Keep that in mind when making your final nominations here. But now, Spence, is Kim in your player pool for this week?
I don't know if he will be. Now, I've given this answer about almost every single pick that David's made so far, but there's a book I respect out there. I'll leave it nameless right now. He is the fifth favorite from where he has moved at this particular shop. It's obviously a very substantial move down from the 30-1 numbers. So it's moving in the correct direction.
That makes sense. You got to pay up for him. I think your initial reaction with Kim might be, ooh, that seems pricey. But in this field, that's the right price. I mean, with Wu he's playing, we usually like Kim as a sneaky value play. But this week, he's not going to be sneaky. He's going to be one of the guys you pay up for. Audience, get it together. I don't see one nomination from you guys. You got 2 great picks coming up. Audience, I'm not mad. I'm just disappointed. I'm disappointed in your effort thus far in getting your final 2 picks, and mainly because I like the start to your draft. I think your first 4 picks have been pretty solid, and I want to see you guys finish strong and close this out. So we're going to have to take this as your first pick due to the slowness and speed, and that's going to be Davis Thompson. David, what do you think of the Davis Thompson pick here?
Yeah, again, uber talented young golfer, right? Like he's got plenty of ability. He's only 24, so we're still developing into what we see him at. And he's been on a really good run. I mean, he missed the cut at the 3M Open, but other than that, he's finished 31st, 30th, 24th, and 22nd, and he's played here twice and not missed the cut. So I think that he's definitely got upside, and we're starting to see some improvement on approach. The thing with Thompson that I like as well is that he's kind of like a Hayden Buckley in terms of he's got the driving distance, but he's also not compromising the accuracy for it as well. Like he's long and straight. And I think that's always a really strong combination, especially on a course like this. And if he can find the putter, he's got every opportunity to shoot up the leaderboard.
I like it. I like the pick. Before I pass it to Spencer, audience, you need one more. I haven't even gotten a nomination. With the price you have left, it does look like there's probably 2 guys you should be zoning in on, and that is Mark Hubbard and Doug Ginn. Those would be the 2 guys I would be looking at this point. I can make that your nomination. Somebody second one so we can get your last pick in. Before we do so, Spence, Davis Thompson, is he in your player pool this week?
He is going to be. And, I talked at the beginning of this show about how the short par 4 and the 4 par 5s were going to be the 5 locations where you needed to score to find success here. So in my model on that short par 4, he grades as the 9th projected player in scoring there. Number 1 player for me in par 5 birdie or better percentage in this field. So he's hitting both of those 2 marks. I've always thought that you throw him on these easier courses, it removes some of the volatility. You can see that just with the returns that we've gotten from him historically. I think he has legitimate win equity at this tournament. I do not have an outright bet on him. I couldn't quite get there, but I would not be shocked if this ends up becoming the coming out party for him and he ends up winning this.
I love it. I love that take. There you have it. The final pick is in. It's Tom Hogue. Neither of the 2 that I suggested is your final pick. I love it. Don't listen to me. Go get your guy. And 12 Hogue's a good pick in this field. So I like the pick. What say you, Spence?
I also like the pick. So it kind of goes back to we'll talk about. This is in a lot of ways also a second shot course. Number 1 player in my model in weight of proximity here. Number 1 player in my model in strokes gained total at easy scoring courses. Feels like a nice setup for him.
There you have it. Audience, I like the team you drafted. I think that's a good looking roster. I like the strategy you went around taking it. Good job. We'll check back next week and see how it does, but I like the way you built that roster. David, you got 1 pick left, 7,100 remaining. Who are you looking at to finish out this squad?
Yeah, well, look, I'm really disappointed that the audience finally got their pick in because I was going to nominate Jim Herman for them to finish out their lineup. So unfortunately, they did complete their squad because I think Jim Herman would have made a nice addition to the audience team there. But for me, I'm going to take like a somewhat surprising pick. I don't know if a lot of people are going to be on him this week, but I actually really like Vince Whaley here. I know that a lot of people are going to be avoiding him at like 7,100, but like the 6K range is like so barren in this tournament. Like it's pretty dark once you get into 6Ks. And at the lowly sevens, you've got a guy who's played this tournament 4 times. He's never missed a cut. He's never done anything really with it, but he's made the cut at least. And he's found a little bit of form, like 25th at the Fortinet, and then over on the Corn Ferry, he was 6th the start before that as well. So you've got a guy who's had 2 decent finishes recently, and he's returning to a course where he's played well enough to have made the weekend on all 4 appearances, and he's still that recipe that I'm looking for, which is driving distance, putting, and around the green. So The other thing I'd add as well is like I always like on Data Golf when they're giving them a rating a lot higher than their world ranking. That's always a spot for me where there's going to be some correction in terms of their official world golf ranking at some point. And Data Golf at the moment, like in the world, rank him 221st, and on the world golf ranking, he's 365th. So there's a big discrepancy there, and can expect at some point that that's going to correct, hopefully in a big way.
There you have it. I like it. I like it a lot. Good looking roster you've put together there, David. To finish out my squad, I am going to go ahead and take Luke List as my final play. For all the reasons we've mentioned in terms of driving distance, current form, this should be a spot that Luke List can compete. It should be a good fit for him. And because he's been playing well, I mean, we've seen Luke List go on spurts where he can't make a putt like to save his life. He's just atrocious. He's falling apart. And then we see him go on spurts where he plays good golf. And, it's been a few months, a few weeks at least since he's played. But over the summer, he's been playing good golf. And if we get that version of Luke List coming out here in this watered-down field, I think there's a lot of upside here for Luke List. So rounds out my team nicely. And I used all my salary, which doesn't bother me at all. All right, Spence, with the last pick of the draft, you're up. You got 6,500 to round it out. Who are you looking at here?
I agree that it's mostly bearing down in this $6,000 range. I'm going to go with a selection here that I don't think I've really ever backed him before. Like, I am always anti this guy. I was talking on an Action Network show, and I legitimately think I've maybe lost more money on this player because I've taken him on in so many head-to-head matchups during the match play contest. I'm going to take Kevin Kisner at 6,500. I understand that, nothing has been working for him recently. He's had some time off. I don't really know where he is with his game, but beyond that, because that wouldn't be my only reason I'm going to go there, is like hoping that he can catch lightning in the bottle after not producing for a long time with everything being wrong. There's an upside in my model from 0 to 150 yards that I see from him. He's historically ranked as a top 10 caliber option on a Donald Ross course. Obviously, that long-term data is only going to go so far if he's having problems with all of his game right now. But I think there's something to be said about him grading 10th for me in expected strokes gained total, specifically for this venue. I only ran that data over the last 10 months, so that's even delivering all of the bad form that we've seen into the mix. I obviously needed some sort of a differentiating quality here where Jaeger's popular, Wu is popular, Cole is popular, Hardy and Riley look to be pretty popular. So if I can get that sub 1% guy with Kevin Kisner, that's enough for me to differentiate this lineup to where I at least can take a shot there. Obviously, he has the potential to come in dead last place. I understand that as I'm going this route, but in a range where I don't think there's a ton of upside to talk between or to pick between, I'll pick the one guy that I think can actually pop. And it's one of the reasons why I did bet him at plus 650 to come in the top 30. Thought that was an interesting number just to consider if you think he can make a cut and maybe work up the leaderboard. It was a number for me that was a value grab.
I think it's an intriguing pick. I think it's really interesting. Obviously there's a lot of concern there, and it's definitely not a safe pick. But I do agree. For 6,500, the profile of a golfer he is, this isn't a guy that's like, in his 50s. It's been a year since he's been playing really good golf, but at the end of last season, he was pretty good. So it hasn't been that long. I think to your point, give him some time to find some form. Maybe he comes back and we see a better version of Kisner, and at 6,500, that could be a steal. So I'm intrigued. I like the thought process there. That's a wrap for this draft. I like the audience's team here, but I think we all drafted pretty good teams. We'll drop the lineups on Twitter. Drop in. Let us know which team you think is going to win. While you're there, hit the like button. Give us a follow. It goes a long way. But we're not done yet. Before we wrap up tonight, we will give you our first-round leader plays. And then check back in to get the ownership article from Steven, get the weather updates and any updated plays that we may get based on tee time and weather in Discord tomorrow night before they tee off on Thursday. For now, we'll start in the first-round leader market. David, we'll start with you. Who are you looking at for your first-round leader plays?
Yeah, but before I jump into that, one thing I just want to ask is, with that Kisner play. What do you guys think of Wesley Bryan, who's kind of right there? I think that he's got some potential upside. I think he's a little bit sneaky. If you have to dive into like the 6,400 range like Spence did, I think that he's worth a look. But be interested in your guys' thoughts before we get into the first round leader.
You'll laugh at my thought. I used to really like Wesley Bryan. Like, it was one of those sneaky low price guys I want to play. And then I got to a point where it's like his driver was so atrocious that it was just unplayable. It was just, he couldn't hit the ball in play. It was just so bad. He lose so many strokes with his driver that I've given up on him. But historically, I have really liked him as the low salary guy to take a flyer on. So if he can figure his driver out, I think he can be a good golfer. Just he's got to figure that driver out. What about you, Spence?
Yeah, I mean, if I wasn't taking Kisner there and I was trying to figure out who I wanted to take outside of that, maybe Ryan Armour, maybe Wesley Bryan, like that would be, to me, probably the extent of where I'm cutting it off. So he's, to me, a value at 6,500. Obviously, there's going to be the same volatility that I talked about with Kisner. But if you kind of are aware of that and you know that he has some sort of a history on tour where he has produced before, I mean, it's better than a lot of these guys down in this range where I don't think most of these players don't even have much made cut equity, let alone the upside potential that a Wesley Bryan could bring into the mix if he can just be, neutral off the tee, and maybe the wide open nature here helps him a little bit.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point.
In saying that, I will say, just before I get into them, is that Kevin Kisner has a pretty awesome record at the Wyndham Championship, which is another Donald Ross design. So it's not that I hate the Kevin Kisner play. I think that the guy's uber talented and probably needed a rest given the way that the rest of his season's gone. He may come back and be fired up, and so I don't mind the play at all. But enough stalling from me. I'll get into my first round leaders. So I've got 5 this week, but all 50 to 1 or higher. So I've got Alex Smalley at 55 to 1, Davis Thompson at 55 to 1, Hayden Buckley at 60 to 1. Probably my favorite is Nick Hardy at 70 to 1. I think that's extreme value. That just seems way too long for me. And then I'll finish off with a long shot, triple figure odds on Zheshang Do at 110 to 1. We know that he can go out and shoot a 9 under. He's done it multiple times before, plenty of distance, and a very good putter as well. So don't mind the triple figure odds on him to be first round leader.
You know what? I wasn't on before, but I like the dough call. Give me the triple figure, to your point. If there's a time to take a triple figure type play, this is it, right? The field is as neutralized in terms of talent being close together as it'll get. So take a shot on a guy that came here where, like, to your point, we've seen him have those 9 under days and explode. You only need to be 1. You can blow up day 2. You'll still win your bet. So I love it. I'm behind it. How about you, Spence? Who are you looking at for first round leaders?
Well, I might be in mid-season form with the picks that I'm making for this contest. I am definitely in early season form of being prepared for this section right here. I very quickly ran a model for this. The 2 values for me, or the 2 best values, are actually 2 guys that David just talked about. You can find a higher price on each one of them over on Bet Rivers if you have access to there. Those would be those Unibet books. But Davis Thompson, 66 to 1, and then Nick Hardy at 80 to 1. I think both of those numbers are intriguing.
There you have it. I like it. I have 4 plays for us today. I'm going to start with Alex Noren at 65 to 1. I'm going to move on up here. A lot of the guys that I drafted, I also like here. In Garrick Higo at 50 to 1, Sam Ryder at 60 to 1, and of course, probably my favorite and most picked first round leader play, Callum Tarrant at 60 to 1. I think first round leader for me is the bet I'm going to have fun with this week, to the point we made before. The talent's going to be as close together, more close together than it normally would be in most tournaments. So when you can find some of those longer odds for some of these guys, I think that value makes the most sense. So that's a wrap for us tonight. Look at the Draftcast, get your player pool narrowed down, follow us on Twitter, hit the like button, check back at the end of the tournament. We have to crown a winner. There will be a winner. It could be the audience. It'll likely be me. Either way, we'll have fun. We'll see you guys next week for the next tournament. Is there anything that I might be forgetting?
One thing. Very quickly before we wrap up this show, I don't know if Sia was kidding or not when he was in chat. I know Sia said Chad Ramey for first round leader. So honorary mention for Chad Ramey, first round leader, but I don't know. Anything else we're missing?
That was also what I was going to say. Is I'm pretty sure that Sia was joking when he said Chad Ramey, but you never know with Sia. He pulls out these ridiculous first round leaders out of nowhere, seemingly. So I would say that, and then I know that Sia always loves to jump into the Discord and put his plays in for Win Daily Sports. And if you've missed it, jump onto my Twitter at the moment, because the Win Daily promo at the moment is like stupidly good. You're saving $500 on our annual membership. It's $199 for a full year at the moment. So less than $4 a week. And believe me when I say that you will make that in 1 week on our golf tips, because you just hit a winner and then you've already paid your annual sub for a year. So jump across to my Twitter page and you'll get access to that promo. It's an absolute no-brainer. It does end at midnight on Saturday Eastern time. So you've only got a couple of days to get that $199 deal. Absolute no-brainer.
There you have it. Get on, sign up, get that deal, make some money. Good luck. And of course,